Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Fill in the blank. There are 100 days until Notre Dame football kicks off the season at Texas A&M, and you are blank.
I am not overly excited yet, and I'm not overly excited because, listen, we're still 100 days away. We're not even into June yet. We're not even into fall camp yet. I have the NBA, conference semifinals, the NBA finals that'll be coming up. I am deeply invested into the Cubs already. Like, I got enough stuff to get me by. And I'm not saying, that it doesn't – I'm not passionate or excited about Notre Dame. I'm just not passionate and excited about it right now. You need to get me about 30 days before the season starts, about a month before the season starts. And that's when I'm good. I'm just not overly excited yet. I got to see fall camp. I got to see more of Riley Leonard. Like, it's just not time yet.
Yeah, I'm content starved. That's what I am. Because it's late May, man. And there's been so little going on since spring football ended. It feels like it's July. It's hot outside like it's July already. And it's like there's nothing happening. There is no news. There is sparse little bits and pieces here and there. Basically, nothing happens in July, and that's what it feels like.
We got the Olympics this summer.
Yeah, but that's 2.5 months from now. I'm talking about right now. That's why I'm content starved. I need something.
I don't care about your content starvation. I'm talking about all the stuff I got filling up my schedule.
I know you're not worried about it because you don't have to come up with the content every day for each of we do these shows every day, and we've got 40 something shows between now and the start of training camp. So something needs to happen. Is all I'm saying. We need some stuff to talk about. I'm a little offended by this comment from Sloppy Joe, by the way. He says I look like a wine connoisseur. That is
that's the furthest thing away.
So far from my thing. I am actually, especially now that summer is here, I am a craft beer connoisseur. There are a lot of craft breweries in our area, especially in southern and southwestern Michigan. There are a lot up there, all the barley growing and hops and all that different kind of stuff. And there's a couple places over in Elkhart. So much more a craft beer guy than wine. If I'm if I'm dragged to a winery, I would do some of that. Bourbon, you know me, Jess. I can't handle that.
Really, the only hard liquor you drink is vodka. I was just getting ready to say, get this man a little vodka, get him a little cherry diet 7-Up or maybe a little lemonade, and you'll have a good time.
That's right. Nice, smooth, good summer drink. The vodka and a little whatever mixer it happens to be, but not on the wine. Scale of 1 to 10. What chances do you give both Notre Dame and Florida State to be ranked in the top 10 when the Seminoles visit the Fighting Irish on November 9th?
I definitely think Notre Dame will be in there, so that's already a 10 out of 10 for me. You start looking at Florida State's schedule and some potential losses that they could run into before Notre Dame. Really, the only one that is a glaring maybe is Clemson, and if they even lose to Clemson and they go into the Notre Dame game at 9-1 and Notre Dame is 10-0, I still think there's a strong chance that both of those teams will be in the top 10. So, yeah, if Florida State has 2 losses, it's definitely a no. I think their only loss might come to Clemson. That's a 50-50. So I'm going to have to go with I'm an 8 out of 10 on this one.
You're going 8 out of 10. I was looking at Florida State's schedule, and they do have an interesting stretch. They're 4 games before Notre Dame, and you kind of hit some of them. Clemson on October 5th. They go to Duke. They have a bye week after that, and then they go to Duke. Then they're
Duke
at
just
Miami.
Lost its coach and quarterback.
Right.
They're irrelevant.
But still, yeah, that's true. But then they go to Miami, rivalry game October 26th. Again, is Miami going to be resurgent this year? Like a lot of people think. Miami and Nebraska are becoming the new Texas. Is Miami back? Is Nebraska back? It's I'm sorry, but Nebraska, you're still sub 500, regardless of the 15 coaches that you've had over the last 18 years. I'm not going to buy Nebraska back. I'm not going to buy Miami back, but Miami, Florida State, that's still a huge rivalry game. DJ Uiagalelei, are we really buying into that, based on what we've seen from him? And then North Carolina, new quarterback this season, but that'll be the week before Notre Dame as well. So this was scale of 1 to 10, right? My confidence that they'll both be top 10. I'm going to go 7 on this because I am 9 confident that Notre Dame will be, but I am probably 5 or 6 confident that Florida State will be, because I could see them, especially with Clemson in that mix, I could definitely see them losing that. And I could see them losing to either Miami or North Carolina as well. So I'm just a 7 confident that they'll both be in the top 10 for that game. Salty mentioning the 3 Floyds is close. I've never been there. I think that there's one in southern, like maybe Kalamazoo, the 3 Floyds, if I'm not mistaken. But he says he recommends Zombie Dust and Gumball Head. I have had the Gumball Head before. That's good. I haven't had it in a long time, but it's a nice one. Tried that.
It's in Munster.
Oh, is that where the brewery is, in Munster, Indiana?
Yep.
I didn't realize that.
You could go. You could make a little trip out of that. Hit that, and then go up to Chicago one day.
Have to check that out. All right. So TNT is going to sublicense college football playoff games from ESPN over the next few years. They're going to broadcast 2 first-round games in 2024 and 2025 and air 2 first-round games and 2 quarterfinal games from 2026 through to 2028. So I guess considering TNT is on the verge of losing NBA rights, what do you think of this move? TNT sublicensing some college football playoff games from ESPN.
Yeah, I love this move. I think you have to be proactive when you're losing, arguably your best sports show. Like Hockey Night on TNT is, I don't even know if that's Hockey Night is actually, I think, on a different stage. But anyways, like no one is getting hyped about, the TNT hockey coverage. I think you have to do
except for DK.
Yeah, I think you have to do something, obviously, to stay proactive and not just wait for something to come to you. I would be really into this if it were like Charles Barkley and Shaq and stuff. But obviously, you're not going to be having NBA guys do college football type analysis. So I'd be curious to see what kind of crew they put together. And is Ernie Johnson still at the lead type situation? But I think I'm definitely going to watch. Let's put it like that, because I think TNT does a good job of putting out good quality content. And so I think their reputation will kind of continue to go on, and they'll do well in the college football world as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's already, people, you sent me a tweet this afternoon about it, people joking around about, hey, inside the NBA crew, they don't have anything going on. Maybe Charles and Shaq and Kenny and Ernie will be, doing some college football playoff pregame. I mean, they already jump over and do college basketball during March Madness. Why not? But, it is interesting considering ESPN's the worldwide leader, and, they basically are the bulk sports broadcaster, and they haven't even started the 12-team format, and they're already kind of, shipping some of these games off. So, how much it's going to matter, I don't know. I will be curious to see if TNT maybe tries to build something around this. They're not going to have anything during the regular season, which is kind of like what they do in March Madness, for that matter. It's not like you see them carrying college basketball games during the season, but they've got a lot of stuff on, obviously, during the tournament. So it's going to be interesting. We all just want to find our playoff games, and I don't think it really necessarily matters exactly where it is. We've got more refreshment questions. Tommy wants to know, if you like Guinness, do you like Monster? Would you be open to trying Gongster? Monster mixed with Guinness? Do you know what Monster is? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Monster energy drink.
Oh, the energy drink. Gotcha.
Yeah, and so I do like Guinness. I'm more of a Red Bull Zero type of guy myself. I don't drink a lot of caffeine, coffee, like energy drinks. My mom always would get mad at me as a kid if I tried any of that. And so I never got into it. You know what I mean? It's never been a thing. And my body I actually get too jittery off of caffeine, or I'll start to crash towards the afternoon. So got to stay away from it. But I went through a big Guinness phase. I still like Guinness. I think it's still, if as long as it's fresh out of the tap, I think it's one of the best things you can drink off of tap. I've had it in Ireland before, so yeah, definitely love some Guinness.
When you had it in Ireland, does it taste considerably better? Like right there
It's
from
like
the Guinness
almost, I think the
brewery?
best way to describe it is it's more like frothier. It's like thicker. It's more, it's not, it feels like, I think it's like I would compare it to like milk, like fresh milk. You know how it's a little bit thicker and that sort of stuff. Then you got milk that's kind of, sat for a while and it's more, I would say, like watery. I think that's the best way to describe it. It just feels more full when you're in Ireland.
Is it cold or is it that room temperature
Cold.
garbage?
Cold.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
And then you start to see all of like I don't know what it's called, but like you see all like the kind of caramel color swirling around in there as the Guinness is being poured. It's great.
Oh, Karen just putting up the Green Bush. That's a place that we go quite often. Beer and some barbecue, and that's actually we were talking about. There's a place farther up called the Mitten in both Grand Rapids, and they've got a smaller Mitten in Saugatuck. It's pizza and beer. The one in Grand Rapids is the main one, and they turned a really old firehouse into a microbrew and pizza place. And they've got a lot of different kinds of pizzas. You can get a flight of different kinds of pizzas as well as your flights of beers, but it's all baseball themed inside. It's a really cool place. And some of the beers' names are baseball themed as well. That's our favorite place, but it's obviously a little bit farther away in Grand Rapids. But Green Bush is a place we could end up hitting this weekend.
We Are Not Marshall says the champagne and beer better get some love in this chat. He's talking about Guinness. Listen, brother, We Are Not Marshall.
We just gave it some love, right?
I am 100% in with you. Guinness is one of my favorite beers. I would say if I went to a bar, I have two options. I have a lighter option. I have a darker option. Guinness is my darker option. Side note, it really doesn't taste as dark as it looks for a lot of people out there. And then Blue Moon. Since we're more so in the summer right now, I like to get a Blue Moon with a fresh orange slice.
Yep, Blue Moon, nice, refreshing. Blood orange. Yakida in Elkhart is actually another good place. They've got pizza too. It's a place that we go quite often. Sean Kelly, though, Sam Adams Summer Ale and a porch rocker is what he's saying. And Sam Adams is one of my favorites as well when I'm not doing the craft beer. Friendly reminder, hit that like button if you would. And if you don't subscribe to the Irish Breakdown podcast on Apple or Spotify, please do so because it helps us out greatly. Don't make us beg on this one. So, Jesse, some Notre Dame softball news today that came out of the blue. Fill in the blank. It's blank that after 23 seasons and a program record 882 career wins, Deanna Gumpf announced her retirement today as Notre Dame softball coach.
Surprising, but deserved. I don't think that if you asked many people, Deanna Gumpf was going to kind of show her hand or, potentially, tilt her hand that she was going to retire. So that aspect is definitely surprising. And then it's deserved at the same time because of what you talked about. She's got the most program wins. She is the model of consistency in terms of being a head coach, right? Never really rode the low waves. And obviously had some good and very talented teams still as well, but was a very consistent, head coach, right? And I think that is the thing that you ask for the most out of your head coach: consistency and getting your players graduated
Right.
at the same time. So
right.
I think that she was a model head coach, and Notre Dame softball is definitely going to miss her. And if you're a coach out there, I think she is someone that you strive to be like, right? Because she was so good for so long at Notre Dame.
Yeah, absolutely. It's shocking to me. Vince actually texted this morning. I was in the middle of something and he texted and I was like, what? Deanna Gumpf. I mean, she's still young, she's right around my age, so it's like she's only in her mid 50s and, with the success that she's had with that program, she seemed like she was one of those coaches who was going to be there for at least another 10 years, if not 15. She became an assistant coach at Notre Dame in 1998, and I think she was an assistant for Liz Miller for 4 years, and then she takes over the program in 2002. And all she did was go to every NCAA tournament for the next 21 years. Now, of course, that excludes the COVID year. This year, though, excluding the COVID year, was the only time in her 23 years as head coach that she didn't go to the tournament. So like you talked about, no lows. I mean, that's the definition. You're in the tournament every single year. 692 winning percentage, was among the top 20 active coaches in the nation before she retired today. So I was just shocked to hear the news today when they announced it. Like think about this. Muffin McGraw retired a few years ago. Mike Bray, obviously, out after last year, and now Deanna Gumpf. Those three coaches all, leaving Notre Dame within the last, 4 years now, I guess. That's more than 80 years of coaching experience at Notre Dame combined with those three who are now all gone. That's just amazing. But just an amazing career that Deanna Gumpf had in her time at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, to make the NCAA tournament literally every single time, right? And
yeah,
I don't know how many conference championships that she might have. I mean, I'm assuming if you're making the NCAA tournament, you have, a couple in there.
Seven Big East championships before they moved to the ACC.
So that's obviously a very impressive number. And in the 2001 season, they were 54-7, 54 wins as a head coach. That's pretty phenomenal. And I can't stop thinking of the word consistency, to have so many consecutive NCAA tournament appearances, to never really have a bad season or a down season is just truly incredible in my opinion.
Nope, absolutely. So, what do you think Gumpf's legacy is ultimately going to be?
That's a tough question. And I don't want to keep saying the same thing, but to me, again, it's like the legacy has to be the consistency, the ability to win every single year, to be competitive, in two conferences that are really good baseball, softball conferences, the Big East and the ACC. And again, the ability to make the tournament every single season. And I think the only knock that you would have, and I'm not trying to have a knock here, but it's just the big one, right? Like to have those sort of amount of consistent NCAA appearances,
well, yeah,
and never go on and win one.
Right.
Situation.
Unfortunately, they were in the regionals every year, and it's the same setup as baseball. Regional first, and then you win the regional, you go to the super regional, you win the super regional, you go to the World Series. Unfortunately, they were just never able to pull off one of those regional wins. That was the only thing. And I know that drove her, had to drive her crazy, to be in the tournament every single year and to not be able to win one of those things. But, again, you got to get there first. Right. And they were there. And, I know that there've been, some of those, fan critics, message board critics and stuff like that over the course of her career, talking about, that's obviously the biggest knock that you can talk about. But I think that, again, when you look at overall career defining legacy, first and foremost, a winner, 882 wins, the most the program has ever had. I mean, that's an amazing number to think about. Excuse me. She won at least 30 games in, every year but the COVID year and this year. They were still above 500 this year, even though they didn't make the NCAA tournament and they didn't get to 30 wins. But every other year, at least 30 wins, 7 Big East championships, 40-plus wins 13 times, including 4 times since they moved to the ACC. But I think along with winning, and Salty mentioned this as well, she's someone who ran the program the right way. You talked about graduation. You never heard negative things said about her or the pro. I'm talking about big pictures.
Never
Obviously,
character issues amongst the
right,
players that
right.
she recruited.
Fans will nitpick and stuff like that. Yeah, but like none of the character type stuff, none of that kind of thing. And what I was saying with Salty is the community service stuff. The school gives out what they call the Notre Dame Trophy for community service every year, and her softball team took that honor 8 of the last 9 years, and a lot of that has to do with the strikeout cancer events. And Brian had her on the last couple of years trying to help raise some money for the strikeout cancer event. Her daughter Tatum obviously was diagnosed with leukemia several years ago, and they have since raised several $100,000 that's gone to the South Bend Memorial Children's Hospital, for that, with that strikeout cancer event, so that's a big thing. Unfortunately, her daughter Tatum, is in remission from leukemia. But again, when you talk about the legacy, I think that those two things, being in the NCAA tournament virtually every year and raising all that money for cancer research, or for the children's hospital that stayed here in the community, hundreds of thousands of dollars that they were able to raise with that, I think is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and to me, that all goes back to my consistency answer. She was a consistent coach in terms of winning games. She was a consistent mentor of getting kids graduated and turning them into young adults. She was a consistent, member in the community in terms of her, volunteer time. And then she was a consistent member in terms of service, right? All of the money that she raised, for the cancer research and that sort of stuff, everything she did consistently, and it like in the results proved it at the same time.
Yep, absolutely. So like when you're a coach who's able to rack up those kind of wins and have that kind of success, you got to go, just like Nick Saban at Alabama, you got to go out and find someone who's going to come in after them. Would you want to follow a coach who had that kind of success?
No, I wouldn't. And not just because of, the consistent NCAA tournament appearances and everything else, but just, again, she was a staple member of the Notre Dame community within the Notre Dame circles. Like, she is a tough person to replace outside of just the X's and O's of softball, right? Like a person of great character, a person that is ultimately super compassionate, literally everything that nice that you can say about a person. That's what she is outside of being, a good softball coach. And so I know I wouldn't want to because of that reason. The only way that you can follow it up is if you go to a super regional or you win a national championship, right? But anything less than that, to me, is just kind of falling short. And I don't think you're gonna live up to the what she has, kind of built and demanded for, the Notre Dame softball coach going forward.
Yeah, it's tough. You never want to follow the coach. You want to follow the coach who follows the coach, or
Right.
whatever occupation that you have to be in. You don't want to follow the legend. You want someone else, to have to kind of occupy that time first, and then you follow that person.
Because then you're the
later
person
on.
that's like, okay, obviously the second person didn't achieve as much, and the third person gets a little bit more of a pass because they're like, well, they were better than two,
Right.
and they're getting closer to one. So
yes, exactly. Like I still wouldn't want to be Kalen DeBoer, as successful as he was at Washington. I would not want to be him following Nick Saban at Alabama, and I wouldn't want to be Gerard Mayo following Bill Belichick in New England, and I wouldn't want to be whoever's following Deanna Gumpf here at Notre Dame. And I can't imagine being able to perform at that level of excellence for 23 years, because there are very few coaches who have, and I mentioned a couple of them, Saban and Belichick. There are very few who are able to go that long. And I do have to think, like I talked about the fact that she's still, fairly young, only in her 50s. I do have to think that just that grind for that long, being in that profession, recruiting and, just going through the whole cycle and games and tournament. And then, like there's very little offseason in anything these days. It's like that does probably have to catch up with you at some point. Coaching is a profession that tends to age you, I think.
Yeah, and the thing is, you talked about being, can you imagine yourself being good at something like that for 23 straight years? I mean, the answer is no. I've been alive for 28 years, and I can't think of something that I've been tremendously great at for 23 consecutive years. And then the flip side of that would be, outlook. What is something I would want to be good at or potentially good at for 23 straight years? And again, I don't even know what that would be. Like I don't want to be an engineer for 23 years. Like I don't know what that looks like. Like obviously, like being a good person, a good son, a good significant other, like all of that doesn't count to me. Like something
that's all subjective, right?
Yeah, like something of talent or skill or obtainable that you can actually get an end result, right? Like that's something of could I be the best NCAA football player for 23 years? No. Could I be, the best golfer, subpar golfer in Cleveland for 23 years? No. Like you can go down the list of things, and it's like I don't think that there's anything that I could do and be that good at for 23 straight years.
Right. I still, when I heard the news this morning, one of the first things that I thought about was back in the day, when like not the last radio station that I worked at, but back when I was at the ESPN affiliate here in town several years ago, would have Deanna Gumpf on the show from time to time, and we went through a stretch there where when she would come on, and we would do a little 80s Name That Tune contest, and it was like, it was like the old, I don't know if you've ever even seen Name That Tune, Jesse, but it's like, I can name that tune in, 5 seconds is what you would start. And then whoever you were playing against would say, I can name that tune in 4 seconds. And, like you'd see who could get it down. And, so like she and Terry Rooney, who was the pitching coach for the baseball team, came on one time and competed against each other. And she's so competitive that I can't remember I don't remember what the song was or what exactly happened, but she kind of blurted out something, because she was ticked off that she didn't win. She blurted out a word that you're not quite supposed to say on the air, but it was a lot of fun when we were doing the old 80s Name That Tune back in the days. So good times.
Is that your, you've been around Deanna Gumpf for a long time, and then John Gumpf, obviously
her husband
was a volunteer coach under the pulmonary coaching staff, and ran predominantly all the summer camps, baseball camps at Notre Dame. So I went to a lot of those camps growing up. I knew John Gumpf pretty well. Is there a favorite memory you have of them? Is that your one? Is there other things that come to mind?
Yeah, I would say that for her, like with John, like when he was a volunteer with volunteer assistant with the baseball team, we would room together from time to time on the road. And there was, we've been talking about our favorite beverages. There was they won the Big East tournament, and and it was when it was out in New Jersey, and we were rooming together, and everyone, because we had to spend the night, there were no, we weren't chartering, so we had to spend the night in the hotel, get up early the next day to fly back to South Bend, and man, he wanted to just stay up all night, and I'm like, are you kidding? I can't do this, man. I can't do this. But those were good times back when
Notre Dame was dominant in the Big East and they were winning a lot. I feel like there was a lot of good times.
Yes,
amongst the masses of those people.
There was. So, congratulations to Deanna Gumpf and her great career at Notre Dame, 882 wins, and of course, we wish her best in her retirement. So, Baltimore Ravens quarterback Jesse Lamar Jackson says he's lost weight this offseason in order to be more agile. His highest listed weight in his career was 230 pounds a couple of years ago. He wouldn't specify this week how much he's lost, but he was talking to reporters, and he said, earlier this month that he was down to 205 pounds. So do you buy or sell an NFL quarterback, especially one who runs as much as Jackson, weighing that little?
I'm going to have to say sell. I do think that it's kind of counterproductive, but Lamar Jackson knows his body better than me, right? Like maybe bulked up, the throwing mechanics didn't quite feel right, and like you were saying, like he said, he wants to kind of maybe lean out to be more agile and be better on his feet. If that were the case, I think Lamar Jackson would be better about taking less hits, knowing when to go down, when to step out of bounds. You know what I mean? Like you don't see Lamar Jackson ultimately get smoked by a tackle because he's so elusive, right? Like even if you're tackling him, you're only tackling half his body. You're maybe grabbing a leg. You're not just like, when's the last time you saw Lamar Jackson just get absolutely blown up, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't see it. And I think that goes back to his agileness and his athleticism. So I think he's going to find a way to get it done ultimately, but it's just so worrisome for a guy that wants to be so proactive on his feet to kind of not be as bulked up. Like I would feel, if that were my franchise quarterback, I would feel a little hesitant if they came out and were like, Dak's losing weight because he wants to be more agile, right?
Yeah.
I get it. They're not the same quarterback, but I'm just saying if we're doing a comparison and, you know, again, knowing my quarterback, a big part of his game is running, I would not like to see that he's actually basically debulking.
Well, and that's the thing is like, we're talking about the NFL. It's one thing. 200, 205 is still pretty slight for a college quarterback. I would think that he would want to be at least 215 pounds. Like Riley Leonard was listed at 217 on the spring football roster, and looking at him, that still looks, a little bit thin to me, like, so I can't imagine Lamar Jackson down around 200, 205 pounds. I would not want my quarterback in that range. I would want him much closer to at least 215, 220. You've got to have at least that layer of armor on him. That just seems way too slim to me. And a sloppy Joe, he had a good, what's Michael saying? Maybe he won't run as much by design, and that's why he's losing weight. I mean, he says he's losing weight because he wants to be more agile, and he's going to keep running. And like Sloppy Joe is saying, his problem was never agility. It's being accurate in games that matter. I mean, that's right. Once they fall behind, that's the big issue for him. It's can he pass? It's not can he run. I agree with that for sure. So fill in the blank. It's blank that the NFL is considering playing a game in Australia.
Meh, we talked about this, I think, maybe a few weeks ago, like Australia as a vacation destination. Oh, sure. And I catch an NFL game. That's maybe my, team particularly that I root for. Great. But I'm not going out of my way to see the Commanders and Falcons in a game in Australia. You know what I mean? Like it's just not moving the needle for me. These international games really don't move the needle for me. But I understand the purpose. You're trying to grow the game. You're trying to reach a bigger audience, et cetera, and et cetera. And I think it would be great if my team, the Cowboys, ended up playing in London one year or Australia in 1 year. And, you and I make it a vacation or something like that. Like, yeah, that's great. But if your team's not playing in it, it just doesn't move the needle for me.
Yeah, that's, I think I said it when we were talking about the international games when the NFL announced them. It's just doesn't matter to me because so far I've never been to any of them. I'm just going to watch it on TV. If they're in Europe, it's going to be on at 9:30 in the morning. And that would be one thing that they would have to figure out if you're going to go to Australia. I mean, you're going to another hemisphere for one. And then you got, the massive time difference and just the whole thing getting over there and getting back. So, yeah, Tommy says only 15 hours ahead. I mean, it's the NFL wants to be international. I've said that I thought it would be, maybe pretty cool. Like if Notre Dame tried to play a game in Australia or something like that, there would be major logistics that you would have to figure out. And most likely whatever teams went over there would have to have a bye the next week, because of the long distance and all that, and the time difference and all that kind of stuff. But you're right. In general, the international stuff does not move the needle for me either. It's about the NFL trying to, just become more global and make more money around the world, not just the United States. Because, they are, after all, having a hard time making money here in the United States when they sell a couple Netflix Christmas Day games for $150 million. Feel sorry for the NFL. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Caitlin Clark led an 8-0 run to tie Indiana's game with Seattle last night with 5:39 to play, only to see her head coach, Christy Sides, sit her on the bench until the 3:13 mark, while Seattle went up 7 points en route to their win over Clark and the Fever.
Yeah, it's absolutely abysmal coaching at the end of the day, and it's funny that you asked this question because I watched the game, and the reason why I watched it is one, because I wanted to see Caitlin Clark, and two, I had a parlay that included the Fever money line, and it was the last thing that needed for said parlay to hit. And guess who was extremely frustrated when Caitlin Clark came out and after this big run when there's 3 minutes left in the game, 5 minutes left in the game. 3 minutes by the time she comes back in, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're really going to do this. Like, my parlay is going to hit. Like, and I was pretty fired up. And then I instantly go to deep frustration because you're taking the not number one player in the league, but the number one draft pick in the league, the most polarizing player in your game right now, excuse me, out of the game. Like, it's just abysmal coaching. You can't say her conditioning's poor. To me, it's just there's got to be some sort of personal vendetta. It feels like
she's done it in some like they've only played 5 games so far, but almost all their games are on TV, and she's sat her for big chunks in the fourth quarter. I don't get what the strategy is supposed to be. I mean, they had the number one pick in the draft the last 2 years for a reason. They were a bad team. They hired this coach. Nobody's ever heard of Christy Sides before this year, and now she's making these idiotic decisions. If you're going to sit Caitlin Clark, sit her at the start of the fourth quarter. You've got the fourth quarter break. Sit her for the first minute or so of the fourth quarter, coming out of that commercial break. So you've got a natural built-in longer break, and then get her out there. She needs to be playing as much of the fourth quarter if possible. And, after she came back in, she had a couple of big step back threes that I saw on the highlights. There's just no excuse for sitting that kind of player for 2.5 minutes when the game's on the line while the other team is taking the game back over again. There's no excuse for it. Jewel Lloyd, by the way, 32-11. She had a nice game last night. I don't know if you had any parlay on that.
I was keeping – no, I did not, but I was that was a fun game to watch because of Caitlin Clark, Skylar Diggins, and Jewel Lloyd all being, in that game. I do have Jewel Lloyd on my fantasy team, though, so it was a great fantasy out.
WNBA fantasy team. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, yep. Random league with some friends, but we're doing it.
Nice. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Hit that like button if you would. Enjoyed it tonight. As always, Jess, great questions in the we in, we out earlier. And we will wrap it up with that. Vince will be in tomorrow. We're scheduled for a 3-man show tomorrow. And on the docket, Top Gun Maverick conversation in tomorrow's Rapid Fire. So looking forward to that, to finally hearing what Jesse thought of Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick as we get ready for this Memorial Day weekend. Bring your A game tomorrow, Jess.
My A game will be brought.
All right. Sounds good. Again, hit that like button, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Appreciate you being here today. We will talk to you then. IB Nation Sports Talk.